are going to learn about our topic number 23, signed and unsigned modifier used with the character data type. So let's move on. So as we have studied about the modifier and its types in the previous video, now we are going to learn about the modifiers. That is that how it is going to be used with the character, how it is going to be used with the integer. So we will learn these things. And we have talked about that modifier has been classified into 5 sections. That was signed, unsigned, okay, short, long, long. Now let's move on the topic, that is how we can use the modifier with the data type like character or integer. So let's move on. So what we have studied in the previous video, that its type. So here you are seeing that modifier has been classified into 5 categories, and that is signed, unsigned, short, long and long. So now we are going to learn about the signed and unsigned. That is going to be used with the character. Okay, that is going to be used with the character. How the signed behaves when we used it with the character data type, and how unsigned behaves when we used it with the character data types. So let's look at that, how we will work on it. Modifier used with character, that is char data type, is classified into 2 sections, that is 2 parts, and that it has 2 types. The first type is signed with char. Okay, first type is signed with char, and the second part is unsigned with char. So here you are seeing that modifier used with the character data type is classified into 2 sectors, and one sector is the signed with char and another sector is unsigned with the char. So let's look at the signed with char and unsigned with char in this video. So let's look at. So modifier used with the character. So what is the meaning of this? A character data type only allows 2 modifiers, that is signed and unsigned, and that's why we are using these properties, because the modifier used with the character allow only 2 modifiers, that is signed and another one is unsigned. Therefore we have classified this modifier that is used with the character into 2 sections, and that is signed with the char and unsigned with char. So this is what we have learned, and this is what we are just going to learn, that modifier used with the character, that is char data type, is going to be classified into 2 sections, that is signed and unsigned. So this is how we have discussed here, that a character data type only allow 2 modifiers, that is signed and unsigned, and that's what we have learned so far. So moving on the signed, that how we can use the properties of the signed with the char, and how we can use the properties of unsigned with the char and its mechanism of working. So let's look at. So here you are seeing that I am using the signed with the char. As we have studied that there are 2 modifiers that is going to be used with the character data type, and that is signed and unsigned. Now we are just moving on the signed, that is used with the char. So when we define a variable without prefixing by a modifier, then by default a variable will be prefixed by sign. So for example, I am just elaborating these things. Suppose we have defined a variable without prefixing by a modifier. So suppose you are defining a variables and you are not, suppose I am declaring a variable, okay, or defining a variable like a char ch, and I am not using any kind of modifier here, then by default the variable will be prefixed by signed, and that is the properties of the sign. That suppose you are not giving a variable modifiers, suppose you are not giving a variable modifiers, then by default the system, that the compiler of the C is going to place that the value of the sign as the default value. Okay, so what we have concluded here from that when we are going to declare, or we can say define a variable, and if we forget to declare a variable modifiers, okay, so if you forget to declare the modifiers, then what happens is that when you forgotten to declare, so by default a variable will be prefixed by sign, and this is what and most important thing. So we can say if we not use the modifier in any variable, then sign is going to be placed with that, because that is the default value of the C compiler. So here you are seeing an example that I have declared modifier sign, and that is used with the char. Okay, we have studied that modifier is going to be used with the char, and we have classified this into two sections. That was the signed with char and unsigned with char. And the first topic I'm using signed with the char. So this is an example of signed with the char. Okay, signed char equal to char ch. So a variable ch of data type char and whose modifier is signed. Okay, again this same. Okay, so this is how we can define a variable with the modifier like sign. Okay, next moving on the node, and it is so important point. When a variable prefixed by sign implicitly or explicitly, then it ensures that a variable can be accepted a positive as well as a negative value. So this is the meaning of the signed. Signed in this note, in this point, it is clear from the fact that whatever I am just going to declare as variable name, and that variable is prefixed by the signed implicitly or explicitly. Either you are defining it or it is defined by the C compiler. Then it ensures that a variable can be accepted a positive. So that variable can accept a positive as well as a negative value. And this is the meaning of a sign. So this is the sign modifier that we have talked about. That we have learned about the two properties of it. That when no modifier is going to be placed with this variable, then what happens? Sign by default come into the existence in the place of that modifier, because the C compiler allows that modifier by default, that is signed. And in the next point, we are just studying about that when a variable prefixed by signed implicitly or explicitly, it means either you are defining it or the system is going to be defined. Then it ensures that a variable can be, then we can say that it is our insecurity that a variable is going to accept a positive as well as a negative value. Okay, so this is what we have studied about the sign used with the char. Now moving on the syntax of it, and that is how we can declare. So this is very important thing, syntax, because that is the thing which is going to run on your system. That is the C compiler, and that is the C, we can say, prompt. Now finally we have declared the sign here, and this is a modifier. So for the declaration purpose, I have given the video of the modifier and its type, and in that video I have used the syntax part, that you have to declare the sign, that is the modifier name here. Then you have to declare the character data types of it and variable name, or we can say variable list. So here what happening is that ch of variable of type character data type and its modifier is sign. So we can say that sign is a modifier, so it can accept positive as well as negative number. Okay, and suppose when we haven't declared this sign modifier or any modifier in this place, then by default the system is going to carry the sign, and this is the fact about the sign. So let's look at the range of it, that how it is going to be varied. So we can say that the syntax has been clear from the mind, that we have uses the sign as a modifier, char as a data type, and ch as a variable. So what happens is that variable is going to carry the minimum and maximum range that it can allow. Okay, and that maximum range is 127 and the minimum range is minus 128. So suppose you are declared this ch, so this ch, you can say that this variable name is of type character data type, and of signed modifier. So signed modifier is going to carry some of the ranges, and that range is maximum value is 127 and minimum value is minus 128 void we can say. So this is the void that it can store in it. The minimum value is minus 128 it can store, and the maximum range is that 127. Sign value, that is that sign with used with the character. So we can say that the range of the sign used with the char, or we can say character, has a maximum value 127 byte and the minimum value minus 128. So this is the range of it. Now let's look at the unsigned used with the character. That is the second part. Unsigned used with char, that is the character data type. So here we can say that when a variable presented with the unsigned modifier, then it ensures that a variable can store only positive value. What we have stored it in the signed value, that it can store positive as well as negative value. When we use the unsigned variable presented with the unsigned modifier, then it ensures us that a variable can store only positive value. So if you see unsigned value, unsigned modifier, you have to think about this thing that it is going to carry only positive value and nothing else. So let's look at the syntax of it, how we can declare. It is same as that of what we have declared and what we have taught you in the previous video. So you have to declare first the variable name, and that is the data type. After that you have to use the modifier. Okay. So I am using the unsigned modifier here, and we know the property of unsigned, that it can store only positive value. So this variable is going to carry only positive value and nothing else negative like things. Okay. So this variable is going to carry only positive value and of character data type. Okay. So this is the syntax. Now move on the range of it. That is so important. So as we have studied about the range of the signed used with the char, its range was from minus 128 to 127. That is, the maximum range was 127 and the minimum range was minus 128 in the signed modifier, and that we can say signed with char modifier. So what here you are seeing that its minimum value is 0 and maximum value is 255. Okay, because the unsigned modifier is only going to store the positive value, whereas if you compare with the signed modifier, then you will find that signed modifiers took two value, and that is a positive as well as negative value. What here in the case of unsigned, that is we can say that unsigned with the char, then it is going to carry only positive value and nothing else. And here you are seeing the minimum and the maximum range of unsigned used with the char. So the minimum range of unsigned used with the char is 0, and the maximum range of unsigned used with the character data type is 255, and that is its range. So thanks for watching. Dhanyavad.